Good evening. Once again, it's me, the Parasitic Armor, and I'm doing another game review today. And that game is Dragon Age 2. Now, there has been a whole lot of criticism dealing around Dragon Age 2, because those who have played the console versions and those who have played the PC versions for the first one claim that they differ in gameplay. Preferably from the PC version, you have the pause and play method, which I believe you had that also in the first one. And you also have that in the second one too. The thing is though, is with the first one, for me, because I play mostly on consoles. I don't play on PC much unless it's World of Warcraft, which is like few and far between. But when I played it on the console, which was the 360 at the time, when I was really big into the 360. I played it and I really loved it. I never used the pause and play type method because that just seemed like it slowed it down for me. And in actuality, I probably should have made better judgment and better choices for my characters and my skills and my stats and everything like that for me to be able to actually beat the game like I wanted to at the end, which I never had a chance to. So it was heralded as one of those RPGs that was like a full-fledged RPG. Like there was no gimmicking about it or nothing like that. It was just like hardcore type of RPG. And to me, in ways that it was. And to me, the first one, even though it was good on console, considering people were saying that the PC version was better, that makes me think that it was more dedicated towards the PC audience. So now you have Dragon Age 2 that comes out. And Dragon Age 2 seems to me like it's dedicated more towards the console audience, because now it seems like it's more open, it's more open into action-oriented type of gameplay. Granted, you can do the pause and play method, which basically means you pause the game while you're in combat and you issue different skills and spells from your various characters so that you can choose what that character does at that point in time, instead of just say you just control one specific character and all your other characters, their AI is basically linked to any moves or spells or skills that you have set for them to use at that point in time. And there's different sections of moves that you yourself, there's one you can either customize or you can choose from a set of lists. I think each character probably has maybe about 3 different lists as well as a custom list. I could be wrong. But Dragon Age 2 for me, honestly, like I thought it was better than the first one. Now granted, the first one was really good. I thought maybe some of the dialogue choices were a little very drawn out in some instances. Like you would have, I think there were some instances where I had maybe 5 or 6 different choices that I could choose from in terms of dialogue with other characters when I would go through various story segments. And that kind of got to me. Now, even though you had various races that you could play as, which basically could equal up and like different classes, it basically equaled out to where you could play through the game 6 times, and I believe you could have six different outcomes basically with different choices and things that you would make, which was really cool. I mean, when I first started the game, I played through all of the origin stories first before I finally chose my main character that I was going to play as. And sadly enough, I ended up playing as a dwarven warrior, it was actually a female warrior, because honestly, like if I'm playing a game and I know I have a whole lot of different choices I can choose from, I want to play as male and female and all the classes that I can. I just ended up falling on the female dwarf warrior due to the fact that that was like the last character that I actually chose to play as. And I believe it was the casted out type of dwarf, the lower than low type of dwarf, the dwarfs that are in like the poor part of town or something like that, and they're trying to rise to power. But with the second one, I really liked it in terms of it basically focusing around Hawk and him being the champion of Kirkwall. And obviously you can make, and as you go throughout the game, you can change your appearance or whatever you want. And I actually ended up reading recently about the choices that you would make in the various side quests and things that you would go on, which they had actually increased that amount compared to the first one, which I haven't really seen that just yet compared to the first one in terms of choices and story-driven gameplay. But they said that they actually increased that amount and decreased how many different types of environments you would go in, which honestly, that is probably one of my biggest gripes, if not the biggest gripe with Dragon Age 2, is the fact that they recycle a whole lot of environments. I mean, honestly, they really do. I mean, you can only see the same environment so many times before you're like, this is the exact same environment I was in from before, but I'm just going through it backwards. Or I'm going through it forwards, but I'm not going all the way through this area. Because honestly, you'll go through some areas, and some areas that you think you can go to will actually be blocked off because you're only supposed to go to that certain section of that environment in order to initiate the next story sequence or battle or whatever it may be. You know, that's okay in some instances, but it just seemed like it was really tedious in a sense. Like it was just, the environments that I would go into just seemed like they were kind of bland. I mean, you can only go into the same cave so many times before you know exactly where to go to find where the loot is and know exactly where to go in terms of where the enemies might be. So besides that aspect, I mean, because let's face it, no game is perfect, and you're always going to have various opinions about a bunch of different types of games and genres and things like that. Besides that, though, I really like the storyline, I really like the choices that I can make, and I really like that it was more fast-paced than it was, at least for me, than the first one. Because I like the fact they also kind of limited you in a sense, because at least for me, like, I'm not a super duper hardcore in-depth type of person when it comes to RPGs. I mean, granted, I love RPGs, they're one of my favorite genres, but I don't want to meticulously go in and try to make sure every little fine detail is absolutely in order. I mean, honestly, that's just how I am, because I'm a gamer. I want to mostly play the game. I don't want to feel like I'm a person who's playing dress up or something with my character, like, oh, maybe I should give them this piece of armor, or maybe I should put this cape on them, or maybe I should give them this sword because it looks shiny and sparkly, regardless of how much damage it does, or something like that, you know? I mean, yeah, that's cool to an extent, but I want to play the game. I don't want to just sit around moving numbers around and changing stats all the time for like 15 minutes or something before I can finally get back into playing again every single time I level up. You know, and this isn't something that's just going for Dragon Age 2. This is just going for certain RPGs in general. But it's really awesome. The gameplay is awesome. It's more fast-paced. There is a little bit of glitching that goes on in it, but I mean, let's face it, with the Dragon Age series, where wasn't there any type of glitching? I mean, I ended up seeing some glitches that were on the PC version on YouTube that just made me laugh my ass off because they were just so ridiculous. They would happen at such random times. Like, there was one time I ended up seeing a character, she was actually talking to the main character, and all of a sudden she started to fold within herself, like she was going back to the fetal position before she was birthed through her mother's uterus into this, you know, dying world or whatever. But honestly, it was an awesome game, and I highly suggest everybody check it out. I also highly suggest that everybody check out the first one as well. When you play the first one, you can actually import your save over into the second one, and I heard it doesn't really make much of a difference, so in terms of choices that you made in the first one. But regardless of that, I mean, it's still good to know that some of the choices that you made in the first one is still affecting something in the second one. But even if you don't have a save or anything for the first one, or if you haven't played the first one, when you get the second one, there is I believe there's 3 different types of outcomes that you can choose to start out with. Like, there's one in particular where there was a dwarf who was like of a chaotic nature or something, and he ended up the the king or queen or something ended up shoving them off or killing them off or something, and he was real ruthless, and he ended up killing the archdemon from the first one. And then there's like another type of storyline that you could follow that dealt with an elf, and she was very nice to everybody, and she would help everybody out she could, and she actually sacrificed herself in order to kill the archdemon. Then there's like a default type that you can follow through with, which deals with the human, which basically it's just like he goes through and he's neutral and he ends up killing the archdemon. But honestly, with this game, I'm going to try and push it out for me to be able to go into all three classes, the mage, the warrior, and the rogue. With my warrior right now, I'm being a total dick to everybody because I just want him to be evil. My rogue, I think, is going to be really savvy and be really humorous with all of her, I'm going to make it female too, with all of her answers and things that she would answer towards any questions that's asked to her in the story segments. And my mage, I think, is going to be good. He's going to be the really good guy. But the thing is also with the skill trees now, I really like what they've done with the skill trees, because there's various skill trees that you can choose from, and to me, at least from my experience, I haven't beaten it yet, and to be honest, as I played through my first time, I think I might have been near the end of the game, I'm not really sure, but then I started thinking to myself, some of the choices and stuff that I made, I honestly really didn't like this time around, so I scrapped it and I started over again, which doesn't really bother me because it gives me a whole fresh new palette to work with, and for me to make new choices and things like that, and for me to get new skills and whatnot. But what I suggest, at least from my experience, when it comes to the skill trees, you might not want to totally devote so many points into one type of skill tree. You may want to jump around a little bit because that might actually help to even you out better. And I really try to go for where there's mostly passive abilities, so they automatically just kick in so I don't have to worry about activating them. Because, I mean, you only have so many slots. You only have like 6 slots where you can activate abilities and moves and things like that. But regardless, it is a very awesome game. I highly suggest everybody check it out. The story is really good, and of course, yes, even when you slay off all of your enemies and whatnot, you're going to get covered in blood once again, but of course you have the option to turn that off as well. The first DLC pack as of this point in time is called the Exiled Prince. Some people have heralded it as being a really good DLC. Some people have hated it. Some people have said it's not worth the price, knowing how many hours you get. I don't really know how many hours you get, but for me, I'm not really going to bother with it because I want to get through the main story first before I even think about DLC. And another thing that really kind of upset me about Dragon Age 2 is they end up giving you DLC that you can download that you actually would have to buy the very first day the game came out. Honestly, like, what the fuck's the point? If that was the case, you might as well have just went ahead and added it in with the game, or either you could have just had it come out much later in the game cycle, like say wait 3-4 months or something down the road or whatever, and then release it to everybody, because that would probably give them more than enough time to really play through it and beat it, and then want some extra content or something. So I mean, I don't know. For me, I like DLC, but in a way, I really think like it's a cheap game that game developers try to pull with you just so they can pull more money out of you. I fell into that trap before, but I'm not going to be doing it again. Honestly, it would have to be a game I would really like, and I would have to read a whole lot of reviews on the DLC before I even think of attempting to download it. And it would have to be at a reasonable price, too, in order for me to do it. I mean, the full game is let alone enough for me, much less me having to go and shell out more dollars in order for me to have to get DLC in order to expand my gameplay experience for that one title. So anyways, regardless of that rant, do check it out. It is a very awesome game. Check out the first one and check out the second one. Signing out, peeps!